Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 6th of October. We are in a new month. How exciting is that? So we have survived 9 months of 2021. Wow. Give ourselves a hand. Seriously. So we have survived. Do you hear that? Okay. There was some reverb. Okay. Anyway, I just want to give a shout out to everyone because it has been a challenging 9 months. We have 3 more to go and we're in 2022. In any event, I'm Heidi Ferguson and next to me is Fidesta Ramsey and we are Cocktails, tonight Mocktails and, and Pajamas. So I realized, last week I mentioned to you later after we recorded the podcast, about 40 minutes into the podcast, I forgot that we had done we didn't do a check-in. So in any event, we'll start with a check-in tonight. And I'm happy to go first. I can go first. So I'm feeling like we all know that change is happening perpetually. It just happens all the time. And sometimes it feels more intense and sometimes just kind of status quo. And right now I'm feeling like life is kind of status quo and I like it. I like the status quo. I don't like a lot of drama and movement a lot of times because I can do it in small pockets, for small amounts of time, but like when it extends on for months, I'm like, no, I can't do this. So I'm feeling really good that kind of I know things are moving and changing and things feel, they feel easy to digest and deal with and handle. And I'm feeling quite more positive about the elimination than I was a week or two ago, which I'm giving myself a pat on the back. And and we'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about Stewie, but my squirrel, we'll talk about Stewie in a little bit, but anyway, yeah. So I would say for the most part, I'm feeling good. Yeah. And what about you, my dear?
I love just knowing that sometimes I'm hearing the positive of a status quo, right? Like the positive of like, sometimes it's kind of nice to be coasting and things are in a groove.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm sort of in the opposite, like I'm in the shakedown, shakedown of life right now. And I can say it also, I don't know if I say it feels good, but it feels alive. And that I think I label as a good thing. Continuing to hold the absurdities of what's happening in my homeland. Right? That's a daily, ongoing, emotional labor of love. And it also has me learning to be boundaried and more resourced and willing to reach out when I need support. And it's cultivating characteristics that I have, but like they're getting supercharged in a way. And a bit of a shakedown energetically. It's almost like it's shaking off everything that's not me. Right? Like,
can you say a little more about that?
Yeah, like I was talking to my mom right before this call, which has me just kind of very, very happy and nourished too, to have gotten some FaceTime with her. It's like last week, my doctor asked me, where do you feel stuck in your life? Right? Because I had some rigidity in my lower back, and he was like, where do you feel stuck in your life? And I brought up this last finance job, right? And and we were talking about my health and how it correlates to these stuck places. And why am I telling you this? Oh, because it's become apparent to me during this cleanse, the only times that I want to drink is after doing finance work. I'm depleted enough, it's painful enough that then I want to seek pleasure, right? And in this cleanse, in this 1 month, I'm not medicating in that regard. And so it's kind of like when something comes to a head, right? That's the shakedown of like, my mom even asked me, she was like, is it really that bad? Like, I'm just curious, is it something you could do on the side and enjoy, or is it like really depleting you? And it was like, what a great question. It's really it's costing a lot. Right. And I can alter my mindset a little bit, but it's costing a lot to do what's not soulful. And it's a leap of faith. Right. And my mom, it's like mother love comes out in these moments when I think I most like, I'm scared, help, and she's like, I don't want you to quit this job. Like, I want you to do what you love. And like, if you just need the safety net to do it, like, I got you. Like, go give your notice and go do the stuff you love. And it's like, it's deep breaths between a little bit of fear and a little bit of faith. And it's like every breath is fear, faith, like to untether from this would be a dream come true. And everywhere I'm hearing these little messages, like just sitting in the bedroom for like a minute, the only dialogue I heard walking by was a woman saying, it's like when you really surrender, like then you can manifest it. It's like the only sentence that came through, by people walking their dogs and stuff. And I was like, okay. This feels scary. It's like, it's like a trust leap, right? So, yeah.
I would say it's 100% trust leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by like, I'm filled with so much aliveness, because it's requiring a certain level of, okay, this getting real, right? Yeah. And it's something that's served for a long time and just no longer feels within the frequency I'm wanting to build.
Uh-huh.
That's me.
Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about my background. So I think at some point we've talked about favorite seasons, and the fall is my favorite season. And I like how the temperature is changing, and then the colors of the leaves are changing, and for me, there's a stillness that happens. I kind of experience in the fall. When the light starts to get a little bit darker sooner, and all of that. And I've also shared with you that one of my things on my bucket list is to see the sequoias. And when I think about the sequoias, what I imagine myself doing is lying on my back and looking up at these majestic, grand beings. And so when I saw this background, I was like, oh my gosh, click, I have to have it. So I know they're not sequoias, but they're pretty grand and they're pretty majestic. And then with the sun shining through and the yellow and the orange, it just looks, I love it. I love it. Yeah. And do you know where your background is? You look like that looked like it might be the Northeast, like.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know exactly where it is, but it reminded me of, and it's kind of where I'm craving to go in the next week or two, like Hunter Mountain in the Catskills, where it's like they have what do they call it? The ski lift they use as like an autumnal joyride.
Oh,
So
nice.
you can get up this high and get that whole view from the ski lift
Oh,
for like $15 for 10 or $15.
oh my
So
gosh.
I've been like daydreaming about like how do I get to Hunter Mountain, and like it's 2 hours away, so it's not that big of a deal.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, who do I want to go with? And who would be down for that? Who even like, cool, like let's do this weird thing of driving somewhere to get on a ski lift to take like autumn photos and
Yeah.
the rapture of it. I'm following the rapture these days, which feels good.
I like that.
Yeah, like whatever feels whew, really
Hmm.
nourishing and uplifting. I need it. Like I need it bad. And I can tell you, I don't know if you'll be able to see these. I got them today. Might have to, let's see. Okay. So these roses,
Yeah,
they start kind of yellowy
I see that.
and then they start to outskirt a little into like an orange sherbet. Sorry, I hadn't thought this through. And then at the very ends on the outside, they're like a hot pink.
Oh my gosh.
I'll take a photo and send it to you. Is it not amazing?
Oh my gosh. Did someone get those for you? Did you get them for
I
yourself?
got them. Yeah.
Nice.
I was a bit of a hungry hippo because we were missing all the like kind of nosh I was having on this cleanse. I was like,
Yeah.
I need pistachios, I need olives, I gotta go to the market. And then we were at the market and I thought, these are just,
Yeah.
again, like colors I've never seen blended together, certainly not in roses. I've
Right.
never seen that merging.
They're gorgeous.
And rapture, right? Like, and I'm like a cat with flowers. Every time I see them, I get excited again. I'm like, those are so beautiful.
Mm.
So if I pass by them 20 times in a day and get that,
Yeah. It's worth it.
yes.
It's completely worth it. I really get that. Yeah.
Is there something that you do for yourself? I'm thinking of like, the Frenchy part of us that allows you to have that feeling of like lushness,
Like decadence.
sumptuous, like just a page mignon, right? Like something that's just because it's yummy.
Yeah. Um, so you know that I love to cook and I cook from my heart. I cook with a lot of love and I really don't have anyone except myself to cook for. And so and I really love good food. Like I love flavor. I appreciate good flavored food and I like playing in the kitchen with that. So anyway, what I'm getting to is when I can create something that is something that I probably could never create twice again, like the same way again. I love that. And then I just sit down and, you know, I'll actually put like, I will actually set myself a place at my table and put a napkin and, and actually do a place setting and really treat myself well, and just eat like I'm, yeah. And just really enjoy a good meal, a good, the good food with all the flavors. And the fact that I did that for me, you know. Um, and I would also say taking a bath with lavender and candles and bringing a book into the bathroom. I mean, there's nothing like it. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm feeling even like my nervous system soothed even talking about those things,
Mhm.
right? There's something very almost primal and simple to gifting ourselves with beauty
Uh-huh.
or aromas and fragrances.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, so we had Janice on last week and we had a great conversation and I went back and rewatched it And I was like, there was just so much good content in that conversation. And I was like, and the tentacles in the conversation, I was like, we could feed off of that for days and feed off of that and that. There was just so much in that conversation. I was just like, I want to, so long story short is I want to have her on again. I don't know when, but I would love to have her on again because I was just like, my God, the places we went with the conversation was so rich and yeah, really enjoyable and easy. It was just with a lot of ease and yeah, just really appreciating that. It was very sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's something really magical about following the flow of a conversation, kind of like letting it move us, letting us dance with it. Um, and it also makes me crave, I'll say this, I don't know that I said this to you, but like having a round table, having us show up like we do and having other people in the Zoom and having like a conversation around all of the things, all of life's things that people want to be seen in. Like it
Mhm.
feels juicy,
Yeah.
and I think we can hold that. I think we can hold space for others and also work with the dynamics of what,
Yeah.
whatever's showing up.
Yeah.
That's just that's on my wish list.
You've never told me that before. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a lovely idea.
Yeah. It's a
And you
new
mean to do
idea
it
too.
and to do it as a podcast?
Mhm,
Like to record? Okay.
mhm.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And maybe there's a topic, maybe there isn't, but they're
Yeah.
just being like, we're actually gonna, you know, let people ask questions or share or join in the conversation in a real, like in real time kind of way.
Mhm. Oh, I would love that.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Ah, I would love that. So,
There's something about autumn for me where I want to adventure
mm,
and I want to commune, right? So there's a sense of it's not so warm yet that we're all hibernating indoors. I mean, not so cold, I'm sorry. There's this beautiful weather, there's this beauty, at least out here on the East Coast with the changing, as delayed as some of it currently is, but with the change of the seasons. And I'm just noticing the spark in me that's like, I don't know, forest fairy, mischief, adventure, shenanigans, like spontaneous, like, hey, let's,
mhm,
meet and do a fun thing. Like, I don't know where that's coming from, but I think it's a need right now.
mm,
Yeah. Almost
yeah,
like a counterbalance to some of the things that feel heavy
mhm,
and painful and cumbersome, but being like, okay, this is life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can't. I think the balance is really important because if we are feeling bogged down with, and that's my term, and I'm like really heavy with the heaviness that is going on. Like we really need to work to get ourselves not only through it, but uplifted as we are experiencing it. Because to be in a state of heaviness and feeling all of that for weeks and months on end, oh my God, I don't know how people do that or survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hold it takes some discipline because I know for me, the last 2 months, particularly with the crisis in my homeland, I've had to be boundaried with how much news I can take. I've had to be boundaried with how much I say yes to, how strong my no muscle is, right? I've had to even be disciplined with, okay, I've kind of been staring at Instagram for 20 minutes because I'm in some paralysis or grief or sad moment. And like, okay, I've got to get up. I've got to go take a walk outside, right? There's this pining for connection
Mm,
that becomes almost for me a little compulsive because I'm grieving. So it's like, okay, sit with your grief a little better, like a little bit deal with the discomfort a little more,
Mm.
right? Be with it, reach out to people, grieve in community, all of that. I got to do that with two friends earlier today. And I just realized, man, I'm just better at crying when I'm being witnessed. And I know that's not true for everybody, but to like get that out on my own feels like, like a little
Uh-huh.
emotionally constipated sometimes. But then to have people who love me, who are looking at me and who are showing care, it all comes out in that safety.
Mm. Yeah.
So I just the counter of like, I've had to discipline myself even today of like, get up. I know you could sink into this, into the news or into the sadness, the madness. And like, I need you to get up and go have a protein shake. Like there's a real, okay, come on, level of discipline I'm having to actually do with myself. And I'm pretty high functioning and generally, on top of things.
Mm.
But grief, like chronic grief, is a different beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's easy to forget the body and forget like you do need sunshine and a walk, even while it looks like there's such urgency.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It could, and just the movement alone could really like I know this is going to sound dramatic, but if you are in a state of chronic grief and depression, simply a walk could actually save your life. Just the movement alone and starting to move the body in whatever way, even if it's not a walk, but just starting to move will get you that little bit of change might be enough to kind of get you to the next step and then maybe the next step. Um, and yeah, and to certainly not sit in it alone because that can really be disastrous and dangerous. Um, and I would also say, I'm going to venture to say, I don't know that I don't know that the depression is going to get any better or the grief is going to lift at all if you continue just to stay in it and be in it by yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can own the place I get stuck is like sometimes I feel too messy to be seen.
Uh-huh.
Right? Or like, okay, who's going to understand this? Or, am I burdening somebody else? And all of that has generally felt like a myth in the face of actually doing it and seeing how people care and want to be of support. But I definitely know it's a roadblock for me. And I imagine many people watching that's like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a train wreck. And to reach out to someone and be seen in this vulnerable, raw, uncomfortable place feels like too much while I'm grieving, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you ever felt, I guess, the tug of war between like, I need support and like, I almost don't want to be seen in this?
Yeah. Um, Years, I mean, it's probably been about 15 plus years, but um, many, many years ago, I will say, I was experiencing, and I could almost pick out the week when it would peak, my seasonal affect. And so because of that, I was not on Wellbutrin 12 months a year. I was on it seasonally. And I would and it was almost like the anniversary of a death, right? Like I would think it because I felt myself having a lot of anxiety as I knew that week was coming up. I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of, oh my God, I don't want to face this, I don't want to do this, blah blah blah, all that. And I would really go deep inside and not want to even be asked how I'm doing. I didn't even want to be asked how I'm doing because I was so afraid of what might come out of my mouth or how I might react. And I felt like a very vulnerable balloon. Like all you had to do was take the tiniest pin and I would just break down. And at that time in my life, I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have, I didn't have a group of friends that could hold that for me. And so, because of that, I didn't feel safe to kind of share that with anyone. Not only verbally how I was doing, but also like like how I show them how I was actually doing. And so it was really hard. So to answer your question, yeah, and I'm so glad, first of all, that I've worked through the seasonal affect. I do have I have bits and pieces of it, but it is not nearly as severe as it was. Um, and I have also learned um, other ways of dealing with the depression as opposed to medication. And I'm not advocating for no medication for those who need to be on it. I support you and I believe that it works. I just felt like because for me it was seasonally, I really did want to work hard so that I didn't even have to take it in during that time. And I was able to do that. Um, so yeah, and so for those, and I know many people are struggling, and we've all been in this boat, if you will, for you know a year and 9 months, 10 months, whatever it is, a long freaking time, right? A long time. And so for those of you who are struggling, I encourage you to reach out and to reach out to one or two people. And if you don't have anyone and you're not in therapy, I want to highly encourage you to find someone who can support you, a professional who knows the ropes and has been there and with their clients and whatnot. Um, because depression and grief are not something I would ever advocate for anyone to try to go through alone, ever. It's too hard. And we're not meant to. We are not meant to grieve alone. We're not. And everyone shies away from grief. You and I know this because we did that retreat, which was so helpful and enlightening. And I was like, oh my God, I still to this day think about that retreat at least once a week because I can't believe how much I got out of it. But I would say the biggest, most important thing that I got out of it was knowing really clearly that when I grieve, I am not to grieve alone, ever. Yeah, it's meant to be done in a communal. If you have that, do that with other people.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really touched that you're even sharing and giving voice to seasonal affect, given, at least for the Northern Hemisphere, that that's where we're headed. And some people, highly sensitive people especially, may be in the beginnings of feeling that, or as you said, a little trepidatious that it's coming, right? That's a whole thing too. And then yeah, maybe down the road we talk about, maybe with Janice, even like tools and ways that I think I can't say that I feel the same, but I feel like by February I'm done with winter. So I have it sort of on the other end,
Uh-huh.
um, a little bit more of an agitated energy versus a sad energy.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's really important that people know, because first off, when we don't feel great, there can be shame, and then shame is really isolating, right?
Yes.
And the only thing that diffuses it is being seen and being loved and being fully met in those places where you don't feel lovable, to be like, wow, other people get it. Um, yeah, I definitely second your, call that people find a coach or a therapist or a solid friend. You got to know your audience, but um, find someone and take that risk, take that leap to being witnessed, because that unto itself is healing. Mm.
Hmm.
Mm.
So I want to talk about Stewie.
Yes, please.
So, a couple years ago, actually, it's been about a year and a couple and change. My neighbor cut down this tree that was between his house and my house. I was very sad. I talked about it on the podcast. I was very sad about it, and he cut it down because the squirrels are a nightmare. They are. They're a little crazy. I will say that I mean, a squirrel, Anyway, so, but it didn't stop them from appearing and being a nuisance. And and I don't know how many there are. I tell myself there's only one, but who knows how many there are. And this one squirrel, I've named him Stewie, he runs along my very narrow windowsill, back and forth and back and forth. And he's been doing this since I've been in this apartment. And a friend of mine who lives about a mile and a half from me, she feeds, she's got like two or three that she feeds on the regular. And so we've been joking around about like, what did she named him? Stumpy. And I'm like, well, this is Stumpy's cousin, Stewie. So I've been feeding him every day. And I started out with walnuts. And then I gave him some red bell pepper yesterday and today. He loves it. And then yesterday, so I had these croissants that, because I'm gluten-free right now, I'm on this elimination. It's killing me, not really. Um, and I had these croissants in my freezer. And I'm like, because I don't want to throw them away, because at some point I will probably eat them. It'll take me a year, but whatever. And so I cut off, because they're chocolate, so I cut off the part that's just bread, and I put them out for him yesterday morning. Oh my God. You would have thought he was in heaven. He was so cute. And oh my, he just couldn't get enough of these croissants. So anyway, um, so I've been enjoying him very much, and he's brought me a lot of just joy, really. And yeah, and I'm not feeding him out of my hand. I'm literally opening the screen, putting it out, and then closing it. I'm not going to try to get him to eat from my hand. So I don't need people saying, "Oh, be careful." I'm not that person. So anyway,
I love the video you sent me, and it made me actually miss Peanut, which is our squirrel. She has not been around the last week or two. At least I haven't
oh,
visibly seen her. I've seen some of her walnuts and things get eaten, but um, I asked Richard, because I was used to like a rhythm with her in the morning, and he said there's so many acorns right now
oh,
that there's even on Nextdoor. There's been people being like, "Where'd all the squirrels go?"
right.
In the neighborhood, the
Yeah.
conversation's been like, where'd they go? And apparently there's such an abundance of acorns. Last year there was a drought, and so there was almost like no acorns from what I understand. And so they were, going for whatever we left. And Peanut likes Turkish pistachios, hard-shelled walnuts. She does not care for peanuts very much, surprisingly. And yeah, is not keen very much on vegetables.
Mm.
We have a bit of a
Oh,
snobby
yeah.
girl.
Have you given her a croissant?
No.
Oh.
No, but I definitely love branching out. I've pretty much been like, I'm giving you nutritious stuff,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, it's an interesting thing to have fallen into a rhythm with a creature and then be like,
yeah.
where'd they
There
go?
we
And then
go.
being like, as long as they're well, they're well,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So funny.
Oh my goodness. Did you grow up with pets?
I grew up with cats here, like on and off, like cats a little bit in my preteen, I think, teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was married, we had cats. But since then, no. And I still love cats.
Mm.
Yeah. I still love just how perfectly weird they are.
Yeah,
I mean, I really appreciate how quirky cats are, and the individual personalities and the idiosyncrasies and the like crazy eyes at 8 p.m. and the running around with the ears flat. Like, I don't know why, maybe just growing up with them, I'm so comfortable with
mhm,
their weirdness. And dogs, on the other hand, is sort of like, oh, this is interesting. I haven't been around this. And like, what's this about? A little bit.
yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Any pets in your
Oh, yeah, we had pets. We mostly dachshunds, little wiener dogs,
hot
and
dogs?
um, at one point, I think all of us siblings had a dachshund. I
Each
know
of you.
all four of us had a dachshund, and I had cats. My God, 20 years ago, 20, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I had cats. I had two cats, Henry and Charles, and Henry was laid back. He was so nothing bothered him. And Charles was very skittish. I got him as a kitten, and I couldn't even sneeze, and he would like jump or cough, and he would jump, and I was like, oh my God. And I will admit that there were times I intentionally scared him just because it was so much fun. It was so entertaining, but I didn't do it too often because he was so skittish anyway. I was like, you're entertaining on your own. But eventually, I was allergic, and I eventually found a home. Someone took both of them because I didn't want to split them up. Um, and I felt really good about the woman who took them, and that was hard though. That was really hard, making the decision because it took me about a year to make the decision. That I was like, okay, I felt like I found the right person, and it literally happened within, I think, 4 or 5 days. I mentioned it to someone. They were like, "Oh, I know someone," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I couldn't believe how quickly it happened. I was like, "This was meant to be." Yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting, some of the questions that we ask each other. It's like, this isn't scripted. I personally I haven't thought about it. I'm kind of moving with the flow of the conversation. And I wonder with our audience, like how many of them feel comfortable doing that, just having a dynamic flow of a convo with someone.
mhm,
Yeah. It's like
yeah.
how comfortable they are, how well they're able to navigate, like, oh, where's this going? Or not even thinking where's
Or
it
not
going, being
thinking about it.
present. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's been something I've been wanting to ask you. Like I think about it and then I forget about it, and I think about it and forget about it anyway. And I'm just curious if there is like what your name does. What does it mean? Does it
Mhm.
is like because I really don't.
Mhm.
I don't know anything about your culture really, and so I'm just curious. Are you named after an aunt or a grandmother, or I'm just curious how
Yeah.
how your parents came up with your name.
It's really sweet. I love the question. I love even like the possibilities of it being connected to family, or
Mm,
how people sometimes are like, oh,
yeah,
my great auntie was whatever.
yeah.
Um, Firishta in Dari, which is the language we spoke and speak, coming from Kabul, means angel. So it's a pretty common name in Afghanistan. I'd say in Iran as well, they would say Firishte instead of Firishte. But in the Indian culture, it's Farishta, right? Like there's, in the Armenian culture, it also exists. So it means angel in multiple languages.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And then my middle name is Sadaf, Sadaf. And that is, I used to be like, you guys named me Oyster, but it's that like really cool tone inside the shell, the kind of opalescent.
Oh, okay.
You know that part just inside the shell that's kind of got this cool vibe. That's what it means. Yeah. But when I was a kid, I'd be like, joking with my parents, think you guys named me like Oyster Angel or Clam Angel? And they're like, no, it's the beautiful part inside the clam, like, that's part of making like the whole vibe, like of the pearl and the clam and stuff. And when I got divorced, first off, I had a Scottish last name at the time.
Oh, interesting.
And I was going through this rebirth. I was 24, 25, going through a divorce. And they asked me if I wanted to go back to my previous name, if I wanted to keep the married name. I guess some people do that. Or if I wanted a whole new name altogether. And I was like, oh, damn, that's cool. Like, we could do that. And in a lot of Asian cultures, when you go through a rite of passage, you also change a part of your name to reflect that you've changed. And so I chose, my pen name was Alexandra Ramsey, which was where I wrote all my poetry under. So I kept Firishta and I switched the rest. And it's funny because, we're seeing it happen now. It's not funny, but like a lot of Afghans don't have last names, right? It's just like, think of Jesus, son of Joseph.
Right. Okay.
And small villages where you're like, oh yeah, that's that guy's kid or whatever. So when we were doing our paperwork, even our last name was like, oh shit, we need a last name for the paperwork, right? And so none of it has ever felt entirely real. Like I have an interesting relationship to names. It's like, well, that last name wasn't real. This was my husband's. This one's my pen name. I still very much resonate with Firishta, and I think Sadaf because it was the family name. But it's interesting, my relationship to the last names, none of them have really been like a surname. I take that back. I guess the married one was, but you know what I mean? It's just one of the costs of being a refugee in some ways.
Yeah. And when you got married, so then when you got married, you didn't have a last name.
Yeah, it was sort of a last name we did for the paperwork.
Okay.
It was required, right?
Okay.
It was Sadid. And I just remember the amount of work. I just want to raise this for women and maybe even men, just to recognize like the amount of work it took to change my last name on everything to get married. I really want people to consider what you're asking of women generally, right? It's like your signature changes. It's all your credit cards. It's all your utilities. It's your passport. It's your social security card. It's your driver's license. It's the dentist's office, the GYN, the PCP, the endless levels of paperwork women have to go through when they get married to then be like under the wing of their husband's last name.
Right.
And then I did it all again when I got divorced, right? Back at the social security office, back fixing the passport, just crazy. It's crazy. And I often wonder, this is a total tangent, would men do the same?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about you, my love? I'm feeling curious if Heidi is a family name, if it has a meaning in a certain heritage, right? Like, oh, it's Irish for this, or do you have any uh, thing you want to share?
Um, yeah. So it's not a family name. Um, and what's interesting is that when my parents named the four of us, they wanted names where you couldn't derive a nickname. And I'm not sure why that is, but they just didn't want a name where you could, like Robert, Bobby, or whatever. And interestingly, we each gave each other nicknames anyway, as you do. My mother loves and always has loved the name Sarah. My father hated the name Sarah. So, Dawn, my oldest sister, is Dawn, and my mom, suggested Sarah. My dad was like, nope, we're not naming her Sarah. And then I came along, and again, Sarah came up. Dad was like, nope, we're not naming her Sarah. Um, and I don't know the process they went through, like to choose our names. Although my brother is named after one of my dad's best friends from childhood. And then Jane, is my youngest sister, is named after my mom's best friend from nursing school. So those two are named after, you know, family friends and whatnot. Um, and it's interesting because for a long time I didn't like my name, and I'm not really sure why I didn't like it. And I because anyway, but as I've gotten older, I love my name, and because common. It's not a common name. I mean, yes, people have heard of the name Heidi, but it's not common like Lisa or Mary or, you know. Um, and I really like my middle name. I like my first and my middle name together, Heidi Lynn. I love the way that it sounds. So I use my middle initial all the time, um, for everything. Like it's on credit cards, it's on my bank, it's on everything. So yeah, but names are an interesting thing, and how they sort of, I want to say they kind of, names sort of solidify who we are. And I think of myself, like when I think of adjectives, first, like the first letter H, Heidi. Um, Even though you can't hear the H in the word honest, I will often say honest, Heidi, because I feel like I resonate more with honest than I do with happy. I mean, yeah, happy, but I love the word honest. For me, yeah, it really rings for me. So, yeah.
So beautiful. Thank you for bringing the conversation there.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about um, in the scope of unique names or names that might be unpracticed,
Uh-huh.
just raising up that it feels really important to be able to say people's names right. And I can only share my experience growing up where people read the name and then didn't know how to say it and didn't maybe feel in that moment consideration to ask or figure it out, whatever. And all the iterations of Frashetta and Frashida and
Mm.
Francesca and like, oh, I'll never remember this. Do you have a nickname? It's like,
Yeah.
no, no, that's my name.
Yeah.
Um, and what I learned, right? I'd let people go and be like, ugh, whatever. But it was almost like if someone's name is Robert, you just kept calling them Rebarth.
Right.
It's like it
Right.
never feels like anyone's saying your name unless you're home with your family, right?
Right.
Um, that's something that happens when your name's unique or ethnic or both. And what I learned very recently in the last few years was I can't have the fantasy of people being able to say my name well without practicing it with them, without
Mm,
supporting them in learning it. So when people go, dang, that's hard, I'm like, it's not hard. It's just unpracticed. Like
yeah.
it's just unpracticed. You've never had to say it. So any new word, and I'm happy to, practice it with you. But it's interesting that in my late 30s, that became almost paramount all of a sudden. I kind of let it go. I wanted to be convenient. I think a lot of people from foreign lands are like, let me just make it convenient. Okay, I'll be Mike. My name's not Mike. My name is something else, right?
Right.
Clearly. Um, yeah, and I had to work through my own realm of like, yeah, don't make it convenient for others at the expense of your need to
Effort.
hear your name.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the things not to do would
The
be,
things not to do.
dang, it's
And,
so hard. I'll never remember that. It's like,
right.
no, don't do that. Just you're smart, work it out. Right.
Yeah. So I want to share one more story about names because I think this is really important. So last year, during the basketball season, my nephew plays for Marquette, and after every home game, there's one player that's interviewed, and it just happened to be his. My sister was like, "Oh, he's going to be interviewed tonight." I'm like, "All right." So it was fascinating because his name is Asasare Iguodaro, Asasare Benjamin Iguodaro. That's like 15 syllables, like, right? Okay. And like you said, it takes a little bit of practice, but it's not impossible to pronounce. And since he started, I guess when he started playing basketball, even in high school, he started going, people just shortened his name to Oso, OSO. Okay. And he's okay with that. But anyway, so at this interview last year, the interviewer said to him, is like when he said Oso Igadaro, he's like, is this actually your birth name? And he's like, no. He said, well, what is your birth name? And he said Asasre Igadaro. And he's like, and the interviewer really was trying to pronounce the name. And my nephew was like, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. He's like, no, this is your name. It's important. Your name is important. It's important that people know how to pronounce your name correctly. It is important for us, for everyone to hear their own name pronounced in the right way. I mean, it was incredible how much time he spent, like, which was probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes, just simply talking about the importance of pronouncing his name. And I was like, I was almost in tears. I was like, this is so beautiful because it is important. It's really important for, like you said, for your name, not only in your own family to be pronounced correctly, but in the world. It just is. And let's wrap our heads around that. Like, I mean, if we, there are millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of names, right? Let's just take a little bit of time and effort and have respect for ourselves and the other people we are in conversation with to learn names. It's
Yeah.
not that hard.
Amen. Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask, right? Like there's people ask me and I try to be like, okay, it's like say Fred Astaire, and they say Fred Astaire, and I say Fred Astaire. Like I'm still teaching, right? I'm still
Yeah.
helping them along. And it's what you just said. It really does matter to hear one's name said. I think I went years without hearing my name,
Mm,
unless I was home at Thanksgiving with my family. And even then, like how often is your name said versus a term of endearment or
right.
right? So they'd be like, wow, I haven't heard my name said in like 6 months. Kind of feel a little invisible.
Yeah.
right? Almost like a genie in a bottle that like you got to say the name right for me to feel
Yes.
like, oh, I'm fully in my body. I'm not a ghost.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think it's really important, and I know from my own experience and those around me, we try to make it convenient for others so that we're not a bother. But you know
Yeah.
what? It's not a bother. It's your name. Yeah. Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm,
Well,
we're at the end of our hour.
I know. Time is a different being in this container.
It is. It
Very
really is.
I saw your request for the ant cards.
Yes.
I have
Let's
them
do it the end
here.
question. Yeah.
As long as we don't questions about our favorite body parts or something inappropriate, it's good. So right to veto.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, my love. Tell me when to stop.
Okay.
This one?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me if we've done this one before. I'm not sure. How do we love differently? Have we? It feels familiar.
It feels familiar.
And I think we ended up doing similarly anyway.
I think we did. Yeah.
Such renegades. Okay.
Okay.
That one?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, let's see how this goes. What do you feel you've sacrificed by being in this relationship? It's a curious one.
I don't think I've sacrificed anything.
Hmm.
I I don't think I have. If anything, I think I have quite the opposite. Is that gain? Is gain the opposite of sacrifice?
Yeah, it feels like it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have gained um not only a friendship, but someone who really sees me in my essence and embraces me in my essence, and encourages me and invites me to bring that forward even more. Um, and so sacrifice, like that doesn't even, no. So the antonym, whatever the antonym is, I'm saying it's gain or gather or, um, yeah. Yeah, there has not been any sacrifice.
It's really sweet. Thank you. I'm taking that in.
Mm,
The ability to be that kind of friend and to be that support means a lot to me, that you feel seen
yeah,
and drawn out even more. It's really cool.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And what about you, my friend? What do you feel like you have sacrificed?
Well, I'm turning this word on its head a little personally, um, but I feel that what I've been asked to sacrifice has been the mask, right?
Oh,
The armor, the posturing, the pretensing, the um, inauthenticity that can sometimes be a social strategy.
hmm,
The best. It's like what I learned about being socialized. How are you doing? Great. How are you doing? Great. Right. Like
yeah,
versus like, oof, I'm having a rough day. So I think in the best sense of the word, right? I think our friendship and you particularly have invited me to sacrifice the armor and the mask
mm,
in service of you were standing for us and standing for more trust and more intimacy and more connection, more depth in asking me like, hey, kind of notice you show up this way a little bit, right? So yeah, a very healthy sacrifice for friendship. Mm,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
So sweet to be with you, and so sweet to be with anyone who is able to catch this and is hopefully served by this. And if you have any questions, something you want to share and be seen in, if you're struggling, like whatever it is, we warmly welcome. I think I can speak for both of us. Warmly welcome you being seen and held in any way we can. And I definitely, Heidi and I both look at the comments. So just know that we're here and that we're able to, yeah, be a presence in that way to see you if you need to be seen. Yeah. Thank you, friend. Good to be with you.
Thank you, friend. Good night, everyone.
Bye.